Gully TV. This is an exclusive, a personal exclusive that I like to share with everyone. This is actually groundbreaking because I love the record that you. I don't want to say that you're famous for it because you probably have other records that might have went further, but I just love the record. You Can't Stop the Rain by Biggie Smalls and Shaquille O'Neal. I always loved it. I've always loved it. I love Loose Ends. Um, yeah, just incredible record. But go ahead and introduce yourself to my platform, bro.
Yeah, so first, let me say that I appreciate um, connecting with you today, Gully. This is Chris Large, and I appreciate, and I think I can speak for the masses, I appreciate how you are becoming a master of retrieving historical artifacts that are critical to preserving the authenticity of hip-hop culture. So that means a lot to those of us who are watching your platform.
Thank
Your
you.
attention to detail in regards to music, fashion, iconic figures in sports, dance, language, urban entrepreneurship, even religion.
Thank you.
You do it in an organic way that deserves respect. So I just wanted to thank you for sharing your platform with me. And it's good to hear from you, my brother.
Yep. Go ahead and go ahead from the start. Start wherever you want to. Yeah.
So I could share a bit of my journey with you. So initially, I'm just like any other young kid growing up in New York City, born and raised in St. Albans, Queens, then moved to Brooklyn. In my teenage years, lived on Jefferson between Ralph and Howard. Also lived on Schenectady Avenue, played ball, played for Bishop Lockman, Forest Hills, high school, competed against some of the best in New York City, got a chance to play.
Like who? Hold on. This is a sports platform. Who you played for Bishop Lockton. I know what that means. I heard Jay-Z name drop him in a record. So go ahead and give us. I need your track record in basketball, fam.
Right. So my freshman year was at Bishop Lockland. And of course, Bishop Lockland has a long tradition of grades. I think Mark Jackson had just graduated maybe a few years before. James Major, just some of the grades. When I was a freshman, Antoine Marchand was playing with me. As a matter of fact, I believe Antoine Marchand is known to be Foxy Brown's older brother. Robert Leslie, just a host of us, man. Just really Isaac Miller, just really talented kids from Brooklyn trying to make a name for ourselves. I actually transferred to Forest Hills my second year, which is another basketball factory. Then I moved to Sacramento, California. We were city champions out there, and then moved back to Forest Hills for my senior year, and got an opportunity to play at the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, the first year of playing Division I basketball, and I got redshirted that year. Didn't adjust, and I'm sharing this with you to lead up to my introduction to hip-hop.
Okay.
Didn't adjust too well in my redshirt year. And I was just privileged enough to grow up with a lot of people who were already in the industry. And one of my closest friends was a brother named Ricky Brathwaite. Ricky, if you're still out there, shout out to you. Ricky was the road manager of third base. And so I was trying to figure out what was I going to do post-basketball. And I always had a gift for music. So what I would do was, I tried to put a group together, Chris Large and Craig Live, and what we would do is rent space at Demo Wet Studio. Demo Wet from the group King's Son and Demo Wet, classic record Hey Love.
Okay.
I'm considered a disciple, a protege of Demo Wet. So we were developing music in Demo Wet Studio. Shout out to Demo Wet. And so what was happening was when we would shop our demo, all of the record labels would say, your delivery isn't that great, but your music is really dope. We want to know who's doing the music, who's creating the concepts. Well, I was the one who was creating all of the concepts, so I had a conversation with my boy Ricky. Ricky hooked me up. Rick hooked me up with somebody, a major player in the street, and this player in the street introduced me to the managers of Houdini and the Misfits at the time. And what these managers said was, if you develop your sound on your own, we'll try to plug you in to some of the groups that we're managing. So this individual who was a heavy hitter in the street showed up at my house one day with $30,000 worth of studio equipment. And he said, yo, I heard you real nice, develop your skill, and we'll put you on. I'll pay your house note. Don't worry about working or doing anything. Just develop your skill as a producer. So it took me about a year and a half to master the MP62, the Akai sampler 950, to master the 24 track board that he bought me, and all the other pieces of equipment that producers at that time needed to master to develop their sound. So once my sound was marketable enough, then these managers moved me out to Los Angeles to share a townhouse with my man Spider-Man from Spider-Man and Freeze, BBD, Poison, all the great classics. We lived together with my brother Brett B from the rap group 7A3. So we became an in-house factory of sorts, developing music for artists who were already in the industry. So one day, one of my managers said, yo, we want to introduce you to another kid who's just like you, who's starting to blow up in the industry. His name is Rodney Jerkins. Name self-explanatory. Rodney at the time was just starting to bubble in the industry, arguably the most gifted musician I had come to know at that time. So they flew me out to Pleasantville, and we just started vibing with one another. And we started to, work on a record together, which eventually became Head Nod from the Black Panther soundtrack, which featured the artist El Haj.
I love that song, yo. I never knew who sung it, but whenever it came on college radio, because that's where you would hear it at,
right,
I loved it. Go ahead. Damn.
So me and Rodney put that together, and also another individual, Freak Nasty. So while I was in Pleasantville trying to vibe with Rodney, I got a call from my manager, and what my manager said to me was, yo, you got a shot to do a record with Nas, but if it's going to work, you've got to make it happen the night that you show up at the studio, because if you don't make it happen this night, we're going to miss this opportunity to get on the movie soundtrack. So sure enough, my manager got me from Pleasantville to Fort Greene Studios. I'll never forget it. In 94. This may have been late September, October in 94. Walked into the studio. Nas showed up. And at that time, Nas had just released Illmatic. So he was like the messiah of the hip-hop industry. Like when he walked into a room, the lighting and the illumination in the room changed. That's the level of impact that he was making in the culture. So he came into the studio, both him and his brother. And he said, what up, Dunn? I said, yo, what up, Dunn? I never forget it. I had on Can't jeans. I had on a pair of brown Timberland boots and an Atlanta Falcons jersey, and I had a derby on my hat. So I began to play tracks, and I'm saying to myself, I hope he likes one of these tracks that I've developed. And so the first few songs that I developed, they sounded more like a Tribe Called Quest. They had more of a jazz feel. And he said, nah, I can't do a record with that type of sound. My management and the producers that I've worked with, they told me to stick with one flavor. So I played this record. I sampled Ahmad Jamal, and he loved it. He said, "That's it. That's the one." So we loaded it up, and it took Nas, I think, maybe one take to do the whole song. And at that time, to hear Nas flow the way that Nas was flowing, it was breathtaking, especially to those of us who grew up in the urban context that we grew up in, who didn't have exposure to these types of opportunities where we could express ourselves with the genius, the God-given genius that we had and that Nas clearly had. So Nas left, and he said to me, he said, "Yo, you make sure you make this work." And his manager, Brian Latour, said, "You got this?" I said, "I got it." Now, the historical significance of that song, 101, is that that was the first time that Nas wanted to try singing on the hook. If you look at all of his records from Illmatic, he really wasn't allowed to cross beyond, the genre of, that real hardcore underground hip-hop, that boom bap. But with 101, he was looking for somebody to sing on the hook. And that song became the segue to his second album. So when he asked if we could get someone to sing, I was kind of scared because we never heard Nas on the platform like that. And I didn't want to be the crass dummy, right? If the concept doesn't work, but he's Nas. So I just yielded to his suggestion, and we made it work. We mixed the song, I believe, the next day, and the rest is history. So after that song, I got a call from Bruce Carbone, who at the time I believe was the head of A&R at Mercury Records. And Bruce Carbone called me and said, "Yo, I heard you're the new kid. We got this group, Ill and Out Scratch. We want you to remix some of their songs." So they gave me the song, me and Easy Mo B. They gave us the song, Chill With That. So I went into the studio. So this was November 94. So I did 2 versions of Chill With That. The first night, laid it down, everything went cool. The next night, I'm laying down the track for this remix, and all of a sudden, the police bombard the studio. We're at Unique Studios. I'll never forget the night because it was really cold and it was windy. I get a call in the studio, in the control room, from somebody downstairs. I don't know if it was the manager or the person who was managing the desk at the time. And the caller, the person on the other end, said, "Yo, there are police here that want to talk to you. And they're coming upstairs right now." So I'm oblivious to what's happening. So the police come up, and my man, DJ Doughboy, he was with me. He can verify everything. They said, "Yo, there's been a shooting. Tupac got shot, and we're trying to figure, is it here or is it around the corner at Quad?" So we're in shock because we know who Tupac is at that moment in history, right? He was on the come up.
Right.
But we're like, he ain't here. And I didn't even realize at the time, because I had never recorded in Quad up to that point, I didn't even realize Quad was right around the corner. So, lo and behold, you know the history about what happened to Tupac that night. And what was interesting is that the police wouldn't release us from Unique Studios until they were done with Quad Studios. So we didn't end up leaving Unique Studios until 1 o'clock the following afternoon.
Damn.
So from there, my momentum in the industry started to bubble up. El Haj comes out. Then I get the opportunity to do a remix for a rock group, Juster. I believe on the movie soundtrack, Bad Boys, for the first movie, Bad Boys. From there,
right.
Pudgy the Fat Bastard called me in, and we started creating some knockers. I mean, we were doing some dope music, and one of my favorite records with Pudgy the Fat Bastard was a remix that I did for Money Don't Make the World Stop, which featured D Nice, M.O.P., Funkmaster Flex, Royal Flush, shout out Royal Flush, shout out Pudgy, Gentlemen, Real Gentlemen, Funkmaster Flex, Gentlemen, M.O.P., Killers in the Game. So while I'm there, I'm leading up to the Biggie joint. So while we're working on this record, Niggas for Life, Dead Men Don't Tell No Tales, classics, my best friend, Clean Cut Craig, was in Orlando because we had the same management, and he was working on developing concepts with Shaq for Shaq's album. Now, here's a little bit of history that a lot of people don't know about. So let me fill everybody in. So Craig had a copy of one of my tapes that had beats on it that I was shopping at that time. And one of the beats that I had on that tape was for the song Still Can't Stop the Rain. Craig is sitting in Shaq's SUV at the time. They're on the highway. I don't know where they were driving. And Craig plays the beat. Mm-hmm. Shaq pulls off of the highway, gets out of the SUV, and he flips out, and he says, "This is the song that I gotta do with Big." They call me, and they say, "Yo, Shaq is putting you on the first thing smoking to Orlando because you gotta do this song with Big." So as you can imagine, you just did Nas a year ago, and now you're getting ready to do Big. Now, what was so ironic about this connection is that I tried to give Big that same exact song on a demo tape.
Right.
But he must not have heard the track. So and here's how that connection was made. So what a lot of people don't understand is that at that time, those of us who were producers and up-and-coming artists, we were just starting to make money, but we didn't have real money. So we couldn't get our hands on some of the high-end cars that people became familiar with in videos. So there was always a hustler in the hood who would lease cars to us, right, or rent high-end cars to us. Well, it just so happens that Biggie, and I believe Craig Mack, and maybe one other person from Bad Boy, was leasing cars from a gentleman that I was leasing cars from. And I ended up leasing a 94 eggshell-colored Toyota 4Runner at that time from this gentleman, right? We were sharing cars. We were leasing from this gentleman because we didn't have enough credit to go to the dealership and walk something off the lot. Right. So the day that I came to pick up my car, I believe Damien, who was a part of Biggie's crew, was picking up a car for Biggie. And the gentleman introduced me to Damien, and I said, "Yo, I got a tape. Give it to Big. There's some bangers on there." And I don't know what happened, but obviously Big never got the tape. Right. So the next thing I know, we meet up at the Newark airport, and me and Biggie, Lil C's, and some of the other people from Biggie's Cant, we meet at the gate. And I'm like, "Yo, what's up, Big? What's the deal, yo?" And he's like, "I'm on my way to do this joint with Shaq." And I said, "Me too, I heard. I actually tried to give you this beat like six months ago." So Shaq has us picked up in a sprawling limo, and they're playing this beat. And it's me, Big, members from Junior Mafia, and Biggie's Camp. We're all in this limo. We're on our way to the hotel to meet Shaq for the first time, and we're playing this beat that I produced, and it's knocking. And I'm feeling like I'm at the pinnacle at this point in the hip-hop game because Biggie is arguably the greatest lyricist of all time, and you could feel his aura, you could feel his energy. And And I never forget when we drove up to Shaq's house, he had a big Superman on the gate. And I think, I don't know if the limo had, somehow the gate just opened up at the exact time that the nose of the limo pulled up to the gate, my G. And so when we get into Shaq's compound, he's got cars that look like they were made in another universe. His house was massive. Shaq is 7'2", so everything in Shaq's house is custom fit to Shaq's body. So everything is huge. And he had his own recording studio, his own gym, his own rec rooms, everything state of the art. So we go into the studio, we meet Shaq's people, and we lay the track down. And so it's me and it's Big in the studio with the engineer.
Right.
And Big is just sitting there. He's not saying anything, and he's listening to the track over and over again. I didn't realize that Big never wrote his rhymes on paper. So I'm thinking, my man needs a pen and pad, so I go to grab, like an idiot, I go to grab a pen and pad. Yo, Big, you need this? And he says to me, I'll never forget it. He says, nah, Playboy, I write everything in my head. I'm good.
Right.
And after about 10 minutes, Big goes into the booth, and he lays down what he lays down. You can jump in at any time, Gully. I don't want to. You lead me. I don't want to lead you.
All right. So okay. So first question. This was Biggie's first time actually meeting Shaq too. This is his first time.
That is correct. That is correct. And let me say this about Shaq. Shaq was the complete gentleman. He was hospitable. His presentation was impeccable. His handlers, they catered to our every need. That we didn't want for anything. And at the time, not only was the Magic getting ready for the playoffs, but I think Shaq was also preparing for the World Championship games as well. Mm-hmm. So the members of the World Championship basketball team, the NBA players, they were also in Orlando.
Right.
So they were all around us. So if you can imagine, just imagine an environment where there's Biggie, there's Shaq, there are all these other NBA superstars like Anthony Hardaway, Karl Malone, just the greatest of the greats.
So you being a former basketball player, what was the shit like, my nigga?
So here's what Shaq told us, that Karl Malone inspired him as much as anyone else in terms of crafting and sculpting his body. He said that Karl Malone could curl 100-pound dumbbells like they were 5 pounds. Mm-hmm. And he said when Karl Malone showed him that he could curl 100-pound dumbbells like it was nothing, that's what motivated Shaq to take his physicality to an entirely different level. All of the other players, they were great. They looked like, as you can imagine, man, they were the best of the best. Their presentation was impeccable. Nobody had an attitude. We actually went out to a club together later that night. I'll get to that in a moment. But everybody was just impeccable. Everything was just, the air was thin. It was rarefied air. I remember, when you're in the presence of so many great people who are gifted on so many different ways, as you know, that environment is just different. If you're not stimulated, if you're not inspired after having access to that type of environment, something's not really clicking right for you. It was just a great time. So getting back to Biggie, so after he finishes his first tape, everybody, they get Shaq, because Shaq was in his house. He wasn't actually in the studio when we recorded the first tape. Okay.
Okay.
Shaq went in, he listened to it, and Shaq is right when he said that the first version had profanity on it that wouldn't sell to Shaq's constituents.
Right.
So Biggie had to touch up certain parts. We had to punch him in. So if anybody listens to the song, wherever you hear the word ladies, well, you can imagine what was there before, right? Starting with the word B. I'm a Christian, so I'm not going to say it over your platform. So we had to actually punch in certain parts of the song to clean up the performance so that Shaq could sell it to his constituents. So we cleaned it up. Shaq, he did his thing. He performed well. And we thought that this was going to be, here's another bit of history. We thought immediately that this was going to go multi-platinum. The single, here's what happened. Here's why people never heard that song as the single, and why we had to actually redo the song with the original members of Loose Ends. They had to be flown in from the UK.
Wow.
Shaq's people called Clive Davis. They said to Clive Davis, yo, this is a banger. We want to go with this for the first single. What I heard, I can't verify this because I didn't hear it from Clive Davis' mouth, but what I heard was that the song would compete with the soon-to-be release of Hypnotize. And they didn't want both songs competing against one another at the same time.
Right.
So Hypnotize was getting ready to come out, so we had to redo that song without Biggie on it. And Shaq's people actually flew out the singer from Loose Ends to redo the second version, which eventually became the single, and which also had the video. Another part of history about that time, Gully, while we were recording that song...
Hold on, I got one question. So
go ahead, go.
The version that we've grown to love watching on the internet, the "You Can't Stop the Rain" video. That's the sister from Loose Ends actually performed.
That is correct.
Oh, that's cold blooded. That's why I like it so much. That's why. I thought you sampled that shit. She came there and sung that.
She sung it over. Yeah, she sung the whole thing over.
Incredible. Go ahead.
Yeah, I sampled the version with Biggie on it, but then once we couldn't use the Biggie version for the first single, we flew her out to redo the whole song. And shout out to Dave Atkinson because he replayed the chords. Shout out to him, genius producer who was down with the track masters at the time. And shout out to Spidey also. So we redid that song. Here's another part of history about that song, Gully, that people should be aware of. At the time that we were recording that song, Hit 'Em Up just came out. I mean, it literally just came out.
Yep.
And so to Biggie's credit, to Biggie's Camp's credit, they maintain their professionalism, but at the same time, you could clearly see that the song affected their camp. I don't want to overspeak, but you could clearly see that that song had impacted the camp. To the degree that if you listen to the song that I did with Biggie actually says, how could players say I sound like them?
Hello.
Right.
Yeah.
That was the first reference that Biggie makes on Wax as a rebuttal to Tupac. So that's a historical significance there. That's the first time where Biggie goes on Wax to make a rebuttal to Tupac, which let me know, okay, this is striking a chord with him. But because he's a professional and he loves Tupac, he's not going to cross the line. And so I appreciate Biggie and I appreciate his camp for always keeping it G, even though I know there was a lot of tension in the air. Also, another piece of history, Biggie had just recorded the song that he did with Jay-Z, Brooklyn's Finest. And he brought a rough draft of that song with him to Orlando when we recorded it. And when he played it, I felt like I needed to learn how to do beats all over again. Shout out to Clark Kent. Shout out to Jay-Z. That song was a monster. And Biggie said, I felt like Jay-Z got me on this. And everybody was like, nah, you good, yo. But it is what it is. It was just a great time. Gully. It was just a great time in history. And I'm just forever grateful for having had that opportunity to work with Big at that moment, another piece of history. So because of that record, because we worked so well together, what a lot of people don't know is that Biggie was getting ready to write concepts and create concepts for Salt and Pepper. And he was asking me, because at that time he was living in Teaneck, I was living in Jersey City. He was asking, he would call me like once a week, yo, come on, Playboy, I want you to sample this, and let's put these songs together. And by March, he was gone. And I never got the opportunity to work with Big on that Salt and Pepper project. I was so moved by his abrupt departure, I couldn't even go to the funeral because I was just so impacted by his loss. And what a lot of people don't know was, yes, he was a lyrical genius, but he was also a great person. And he had a tremendous heart. And he loved the culture, Gully. He loved the culture, man. Until this day, for those of us who had the privileged opportunity to work with Big, his loss is irreplaceable. So shout out to Big, shout out to Junior Mafia, shout out to Lil C's, and shout out to Big's family.
Okay, so
you can jump in at any time.
Yeah, the era that we're speaking of, this is essentially like 95, 96.
Correct. Golden era.
You're a producer in the industry. You didn't just bag Nas and Biggie back to back. So,
right.
And you mentioned Rodney Jerkins. So, prior to this interview with you, I interviewed Bryce Wilson, who he mentioned, I think, Rodney Jerkins amongst a handful of other producers who were like, super producers at the time. Did you ever get a chance to work with Bryce at all?
I did not get a chance to work with Bryce at all. I think we would have eventually worked together. And so what I mean by that is, after I did the song with Biggie, my career began to, go into another stratosphere. So from Big, I went straight to Houdini. At the time, they were signed to Jermaine Dupri. I did a song with them. From there, I did a song with Mike Geronimo featuring Monifa called Street Life. Another classic. Then I signed on with Flavor Unit Entertainment. They were managing me. So then I started to run through a series of remixes with SWV, Vanessa Williams, Tony Braxton. I actually was doing a remix for You're Making Me High, which was the song that Bryce did.
Oh, yeah. You're right.
Yeah. And I think, because me and Bryce, I believe that we both signed up with Flavor Unit at the same time. And Shirley was our immediate contact to Flavor Unit at that time. Great office in Jersey City. Queen Latifah's mother, a wonderful woman, rest in peace. And Queen Latifah was great. And I was preparing to do 5 songs with Janet Jackson because Janet Jackson was a label mate of Pudgy at the time.
Right.
And it was at that time when I suddenly had a conversion experience, gave my life to Christ, and just felt compelled to walk away from the industry. So many would ask, wow, Chris Large was about to be one of those major mega super producers. How did he vanish? And it was because I felt compelled to go into the ministry, and since then, earned my undergraduate, master's level, and doctorate, became a pastor, professor, published author, and that's who I am today. But I'm grateful for having played a small part in pushing the culture forward, and had a chance to work with some of the best in the game. And most certainly Nas and Biggie, they represent the best that hip-hop culture has ever had to offer to the world. And shout out to Bryce, wonderful brother. We may have met at one or two clubs. We spoke briefly. My memory of him was that he was a gentleman. He was a gentleman, very respectful, and I appreciate his giftedness and his craft and his legacy as well.
What records did you do with SWV?
So I did the song Really All About You. I did the remix. I think I did one version, and I believe All Star did a version. The version I did, the remix that I did, was with Special Ed song I Got It Made. So I did the remix of that with Special Ed song, and it was a banger.
Okay. So how long would you say that your career as a producer, in the 90s, how long would you say your career extended?
So I would say from 94 to the middle of 97.
I appreciate you sharing some very, very rare historic facts with me today. I love that record, You Can't Stop the Rain. I can't believe that was actually, what's the lady's name from Loose Ends that was singing the hook?
Wow, I can't remember her name. I want to say Macintosh, but I don't want to make a mistake.
Right.
I can't remember her name, but yeah, they flew her out from the UK to LA to redo the second version. Shout out to Peter Guns too. Peter Guns was in the camp, the Twism camp at that time, and was working with Shaq as well.
Oh yeah, I have to ask you about that. I was gonna get to that. Shaq was keeping up on the track. How his? I'm not asking about who did what, but was he assisted? Was you actually there during his recording process?
Yeah, I was there. Yeah, I was there. Yeah. He did. Shaq did great, man. He delivered what he was supposed to deliver. I don't think it took more than 2 takes with Shaq either. He was really serious, and is serious till this day, about hip hop and about rap. And he took his delivery seriously. He performed it, and I'm proud of him, man. I am.
Did as the record got out, was there an immediate impact? Did y'all understand that y'all made a banger? Like, damn, Shakira, because it was a novelty thing for rappers. I mean, for athletes to rap. I actually heard Shaq's debut album. The song, I Got Skills. It was a couple of them that was okay to me. You know what I mean? But yeah, man. Like, did y'all understand that?
No, we didn't know. We did not know the significance, nor could we understand the historical significance of the moment. Even Shaq, in all honesty, probably didn't understand what was happening. He just had a great love for hip hop,
right?
And he's from Jersey, right? And he has access to means. He's passionate about the genre and the art form, so why not? He's got the resources to work with whoever he wants to work with.
Right.
And he was smart enough to get the right team around him to make sure that he could perform to the best of his ability. And he did that. Right. And I'm proud that he was able to live up to the bar that Biggie set for him, because Biggie went first.
Yeah.
And you have to remember, at this time, Shaq was flying everybody who was on that album to Orlando at the same time. So Jay-Z was there, Fat Joe was there. I mean, everybody on the album, we were all in Orlando.
Right.
So Shaq had to perform. And he did.
Yeah. That's blockbuster. I think it's probably the best collaboration between a hip hop artist and athlete of all time, hands down.
Thank you. I believe so too. But thank you for even honoring the attempt to be great in that moment.
Right.
I appreciate you, man. I do.
After doing the record, those politics that you ended up finding out about, it probably gonna collide with Hypnotize. It was gonna be a better record than Hypnotize. I'm a hip hop consumer. I took to that record. It's still better than Hypnotize to me.
I can't say it. You said it. I can't say it.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah, I could say it. Yeah, I mean that's no disrespect to.
No disrespect.
Hypnotize grew on me, with the video, with the boats and all of that. Like it grew on me over a period of time, and I love the song. But when I first heard "You Can't Stop the Rain," I was like, wow. I couldn't believe some of the stuff that Biggie was saying. Vehicles with televisions in them.
Gully, neither could we. Let me tell you something. When Biggie performed on that track, nobody said anything. No, my G, it was, if you were to drop a feather on the ground, it would have sounded like a nuclear bomb. Because remember, Big doesn't write anything.
Right.
So you don't know what he's going to say until he says it.
Right. So how many takes?
One.
Whoa, oh my God.
That's my point. And you actually bring to my remembrance something else about that song.
How do he do all of that on a Shaquille O'Neal record, one take? That's crazy. That's crazy.
Biggie was that nice.
And Life After Death came out today.
Yeah.
23 years ago today.
Shout out to Big and to Life After Death, and I hope that the project works out well. Here's another thing about that song. So after Biggie, when he did his take on the hook, he only said one time, "Can't stop, won't stop."
Right.
But he only said it once.
Right.
So when I heard it, I said, "Nah, I gotta loop this."
Right.
And I gotta run this all throughout the hook of the song. And so when you listen to the song and you hear him saying, "Can't stop, won't stop, what? Can't stop, won't stop, what?" That was me actually punching in, looping him saying that, because it just gave a rhythmic feel to the hook that just made the song, work in a way that it wouldn't had he not kept saying that. And so that mantra, "Can't stop, won't stop," that actually became a part of hip-hop culture. I think Puff ran with that, then other people started running with that.
Wow.
And now that's considered iconic language in the hip-hop culture because of that looping, "Can't stop, won't stop." I don't want to overspeak.
Right.
Maybe we got that from Puff, but I know when we looped it, it took off from there and it caught on with the culture. So yeah.
Great record, Chris Large. To this day, when you hear, me and you had an encounter on Instagram because I was working out to the song. It makes you, blush when you hear people still playing it or whatever.
It does. And ironically, it makes me question to some degree why other platforms or the media or hip-hop historians in general haven't done the investigative work of prying into the historical significance of that song, right? And all the background context behind the song. So for you, once again, to be out front, to peel the layers behind that historical moment in history speaks of the integrity of your platform and your diligence as a historian. So I salute you for that. And yeah, every time I hear it, it takes me back to that moment. And just imagine. I can't paint this picture more vividly. Just imagine we're in the studio. Members of Junior Mafia are right outside the studio shooting dice, laughing, having a great time. There's a lake right next door to the studio, and there are alligators sunbathing on the grass.
Wow.
There's foreigns in the garage that none of us have ever seen before. Shaq has a full staff of handlers that are catering to his every need, our every need. All of our food is being cooked on the spot in his special kitchen. His gym is next door. It was all fully stocked and sponsored by Wider. I mean, it was just crazy. And here it is. You got a group of young men, 21, 22, 23 years old. And we're just trying to push the culture forward, man. It was a great time.
Right. That's like Fantasy Island. Real life Fantasy Island. That's crazy.
It was.
Chris.
It was.
Oh,
and at that time, Michael Jackson, I believe, lived right across the water, and Tiger Woods as well. So we could see back of their homes right across the lake, my G. It was crazy.
Wow.
It was crazy.
Chris, man, I appreciate you for coming through, man. If you ever go public again, I'm not gonna ask you to drop your social media. You're not a professional musician anymore. If you choose to, that's cool.
I'm not.
Maybe you could.
But people can come by. People can look out for me on Instagram. I am Christopher Michael Jones. I don't mind that. People find me sporadically anyway, but listen, man, Gully, keep doing what you're doing. Keep walking with the integrity that you're walking with. Keep doing the work, my brother, and the best is yet to come for you, and I appreciate you. And I speak on behalf of the masses. I appreciate all that you're doing to push the culture forward, my G. Just keep doing it, man. We got you.
Yeah, my man Chris, man, I'll talk to you again soon, man. I appreciate the record, man. I'm going to play it soon. The only reason I ain't played it during this interview is because it's a copyright violation. You know what I mean? Somebody want their money. Biggie's people want their money. Biggie and Shaq want their money on that record. So
that's right.
I can't fuck with it. So, yeah, I appreciate you.
MCA wants their money because they took all the publishing, but you ain't hear that from me.
Oh, there you go. Shout out to you, Chris. Peace, man. You be safe during this. Get your ginger up, my nigga.
I am, my G. I'm on it.
Yep. All right. I'll talk to you soon, Chris. I appreciate you.
You be blessed, man. My pleasure.
Yep. One.